Hello and welcome to today's Teams Tips. Y'all, thank you so much for playing along with our game this morning. We did have a winner who guessed the theme of the song. Today is all about having our head in the clouds. So today we're going to be going over cloud storage and how to use OneDrive as well as SharePoint. How does it work in the university? What is the point of having everything in that upper stratosphere? Today, we are joined with individuals from Microsoft who are going to be leading this training because they are the pillars of excellence in this area. But for now, I'm Amanda Pritchard. I am the Microsoft 365 specialist at UT Dallas, and I just want to welcome you and ensure that you know how to use Teams Live. So if this is your first time joining us, if you need to at any time in today's training, you can hover along the video feed. You can pause and rewind. So if there's something that our trainer is showing you that you want to look up on your individual device, go ahead and pause and you'll be able to rewind and try to do it on your own. If you haven't taken a peek in the chat, it is located on the right side of your screen, and we gave away a couple of prizes for those who were playing along with our game, our opening. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss any further messages or important links and references, please take a look on that right side panel. You can have that chat open. We'll be posting there, as well as looking for any of the questions that you have about today's content. Don't hesitate to reach out with us and ask or have any clarifying questions. We are here to help. Before we get started with the session today, I wanted to go over a couple of upcoming events that I thought that you all might be interested in. Today's session is about cloud storage, but if you're looking for some additional information coming up, we do have a session for advancing your Outlook skills, Jazz Up Outlook. So if you're looking for a roaring good time, want to advance your skill set in Outlook and learn how to do things like rules, setting up different configurations, and better management of your inbox, then you'll want to register for that. In just a moment, I'll post that link in the chat so that you can go ahead and pre-register. In addition, we have a session coming up on hybrid meetings. We're going to go over all of the information that you need on what equipment needs to be purchased, how you can set up a Teams conference room so you can have people in person as well as virtually attend your future meetings when we're back on campus. One of the benefits for registering for these events early is that your name gets entered to win some of our fabulous prizes. Microsoft has partnered with us to provide us with a lot of swag. So if you are wanting to be rewarded for your good behavior, for being proactive and getting registered, then just know we do draw random winners and reward you for that registration because it helps our planning and it helps us understand what questions you have coming in advance. Today's session will be recorded. We do post all of our recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you have not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe because you're going to be the first to get access to that information. So now, without further ado, Nick is here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so Nick can get an opportunity to pull his up and be able to share the content for today. Nick is with Microsoft. He's going to be leading us through this training today and sharing all of the details that we have, that Microsoft has on OneDrive. Nick, welcome, and thank you so much for leading us today.
Thank you so much. I love that you have that sign. My name is Nick. I'm going to be your presenter for today's session today. I'm going to be covering the basics of OneDrive for Web and SharePoint Online. So let me just go ahead and get my screen up here so we can go ahead and dive into all this content I have for you. So here we are. While this isn't OneDrive or SharePoint specifically right now, what I am in here is the Office portal. So once you get logged into Office with your organization credentials, you will get a screen that looks very similar to what I have here on mine. And one of the things that I have attached to my left-hand navigation rail here is OneDrive and SharePoint. I use them fairly regularly. Now, if they aren't apps that you've opened before or used regularly, they might not be appearing there for you. So down here at the bottom left-hand corner, it says All Apps. And when I go ahead and open that up, it'll give me all the apps that I have available to me in my Microsoft environment in alphabetical order. Just go ahead and clear out some of these items that are in my way there. And as I scroll through, let's go ahead and start with OneDrive today. OneDrive, I like to say, is a personal filing cabinet. Well, you can go ahead and share content out with anyone else in the office. The content is yours. It's right there, always ready and on hand to use. So I have now just opened my OneDrive online. And going through some of the basic navigation, up here at the top, we have a search bar. That is your global search for OneDrive here in your OneDrive environment. And you can choose what you're searching, so all your files, all your files, or all files that have been shared with you, or all files that are publicly available in your org. So I'm here in all files right now, and some of the basic navigation here is going to be very familiar to you. Just like you would see in a file explorer, we can see here that I have what type of file it is, what it's called, what have you titled this item. When was it last modified? Who modified it? This is something you maybe don't see in your file explorer if you only have files that you have interacted with. So many of them have been modified by me, but I can see here that Julie Vance was the last one to modify document 1. Right here, though, on file size, I can see exactly how much storage is being taken up by these items. And if it is a folder, it will let me know how many items are in the folder. And then we have sharing. Sharing here will let me know whether it's just me that has access to it, or, for instance, if it's a whole team in Microsoft Teams. Maybe I have it shared with a select few people, and so it's right here, shared with. Well, I can select this button, and I can see who has access to it, and I can manage that access. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, so let's go ahead and slow it down and talk our way through this navigation bar at the top. So right here at the top, I have a variety of options available to me. I can start a new document, and I can make a new folder, start a new Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, you name it. And when I do so, I will title it. It'll open on up into Word Online. Let's save this document 2 right now, so I might need to rename it later. And then I can start putting in content into the document, modifying it. I can share it out to others and collaborate on it. But I could also upload files and folders from my local or other cloud storage on my device.
Hey, Nick, just a quick
Yes,
question, if you don't mind. Would you be able to zoom in just a little bit so that we can see it super clear? That's perfect.
yes. Let me just see if I can change the scaling of my, there we go.
Yeah, if you don't mind just doing that slightly. Thank you. That helps us see it better. I appreciate that.
Yep, just give me just a moment to correct that. Well, that works for now. Um, and so next up we have sync. Sync can do quite a lot for you. So it's wanting to go ahead and open my file explorer. So it's getting ready to sync. And once I do so, I would be able to go into my File Explorer. Let's go ahead and pull that up here. And we can see that I have a OneDrive here that says, so I have a OneDrive that says -Microsoft, but I'm not using the Microsoft OneDrive right now. I'm using my demo tenant. And so this is Contoso. And I can see that in the Contoso environment, there is documents, that the one that was shared out to the market project team, email attachments from Power Automate, billing, document 1, and the document 2 that I just created here on 5/25 at 11:11. So that's the document that we just created 2 minutes ago. And all my files are an exact mirror of what I was seeing right here in this environment. Now, there are other tools I can connect to OneDrive, and that would connect to Power Automate for doing all kinds of things, but that is a separate course that we're not going to dive too far into at this time. Next up, here farther on the right, I have the ability to sort by name, type, modified, modified by, and file size. All these features that I just named across the top, because these are also filters for me. Whether I want to do A to Z or older to newer. So what was the the eldest modified, I should say. So January 28th, that's the oldest one that I have in here. And the newest one should be that document that I just created. So it does folders first, and then boom, document 2. Right there, front and center for me. Now I'm going to keep it in alphabetical order because that makes the most sense to me right now. And then over here on the right-hand side rail again, let's go ahead and scroll on over. There are a variety of views that I can use. And so there's list, compacted list, and tiles. Now we're using a standard list right now. And watch for what happens when I hit compacted list. It's going to be very slight. Those barriers between each of those files was eliminated, and it's now compressed. I get more content on my screen, but it's not quite as separated, and I know for me, list is a lot easier because I can use the lines to follow it across. I'm not going to end up on another file's information. Compacted list, I tend to lose focus very easily, so this makes it a little bit more difficult for me. But there's the third view of tiles that is very helpful because it will give me a preview of all my documents and even some of my folders if I start looking at what's in them. But so I can see, so that's what the OSHA regulations look like. I can start looking at the title page of some of my PowerPoints, even start to see what some of that structure is on my less iconic documents. So if you could recognize the document visually, but the names just don't do it for you, then by all means, maybe tile view is the solution for you. All right, we're going to go back into list view. And that is some of the basics of standard navigation, but then there is specific navigation that happens to individual files. So now we have a whole bunch of new options available to us. And one way that we could reach these same options, other than selecting the little checkboxes off to the left-hand side of our documents, is we could hit this ellipsis. And each of these ellipses will give you all of your options to examine, modify, and manipulate your files in a way that seems natural to you. So in OneDrive, there's about 5 different ways to do the same thing, and I'm going to show you a few of them today. So we could, of course, open a file by selecting open or selecting the file or hitting open up here at the top. Share is everywhere in OneDrive. OneDrive seems to want you to share your documents with other users, or at the very least, make it something that you can always do from anywhere. That way you can get collaborating on those documents that if you are needing that other insight on, hey, I don't want to send out this document because I just want it to be one copy. And I don't want to email it out so that there's suddenly 5 copies floating around and everyone has done their modifications on it. And now we don't know how to bring them all back together. This makes it easy, so there's always only one copy that has received those modifications. I can preview the document, which gives me this sort of PDF type view to view it in. And I'm not editing, I'm just interacting. I'm taking a look at what the content is. I can tab through a PowerPoint, I can scroll through a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. You can, of course, download it locally by hitting download, and that is the same as saying save as, because when you're using OneDrive, every keystroke is saving the changes that you've made. I can, of course, delete it and remove it from my OneDrive. I can move it to a different location, a different folder, or copy it in there so that I'm not removing it from its original location. I did say that I was going to rename document 2, so I'll go ahead and hit rename here. And it brings this little pop-up window for me to do that renaming on. So I'm going to call this UT test doc. Now it's renamed, and it will be resorted in the alphabetical or whatever filtered order you have here. So let's continue to manipulate that document. And again, rename is up here at the top. There are many ways to do the same things. All the options I'm going to show you will be available in both places. I can hit the ellipsis to move and copy, but version history is something that's going to be a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to go to document 1 and take a look at some of that version history by hitting the ellipsis. It is a very powerful tool because documents change. They evolve as we manipulate and add to, remove from. And as we do that, sometimes there will be content that we think we don't need, and later on down the line, oh no, I need that. It's very important to my everyday work life or what I'm doing now, but it wasn't relevant then. I can very easily go back, open the file of an older version that is held in reserve for me, or restore it to that previous version. And whether I restore it or open it, I can then go in, take the content that I am now missing out, and paste it into my new version. That way, nothing is really ever gone. It's always going to be available to me, but the document itself is always the version that I want it to be. So that has saved my skin more times than I can name. Version history is one of my favorite features. I cannot stress it as a useful tool enough. And so I can view the details of a document if I want to, and it pulls everything up here on the side with a little preview of it. I can see who has access of it, how active the document has been, and as well as what type modified. It's all that usual information that is listed right across its listing. But now that talked about that a little, let's talk about sharing. What does the sharing window look like? So right here, it's saying anyone with the link can edit the document. I just need to choose who to send the link to. So let's go ahead and send it to Cole. And Eric, maybe I was wanting to send it to Jesse as well. So I can just keep adding users to this and remove them if I want to. And I haven't sent it yet. These are just pre-sending. It's like typing in the name at the top of an email. Even though I put the address to send in there, I have not sent it yet because I can still do some modifications. So it says anyone with a link can edit. Well, let's change what some of those options are. So anyone with a link means within or outside of my org. I could set it to just users in my org. Maybe, you know what? Only who has existing access. We're not sending it to anyone else. Or specific people that I name. But with anyone with the link, I get some new options here. So if they're in the org or with the link, if I just send out a link, I can set an expiration date. When do they lose access? That allows me to control who has what for how long. And maybe I don't want them to edit it. I just want them to have access to it. And if they're not allowed to edit, I can make it so they don't download it. And now that document only exists in my OneDrive. They can read it until the date I set. Maybe it's a week from now. That's when that link expires. I can set a password that I have to provide to them for them to be able to access the document. Now, some of these features do disappear as I send it to other users. So if it's specific to people in my org, I don't set that expiration date. I just revoke their access. I can allow editing, and if I allow editing, there is open in review mode only. And what that does, review mode, is where they can leave comments and suggest changes, but not make permanent changes to the document itself. That's left up to me. So it'll leave in bright red, blue, purple, green text with an underline that they're suggesting a change, maybe a deletion with a strike through. And I can right click it and accept it, or right click and reject it. That way, my document always takes the form that I want it to have and isn't what other people have made it. So I have all kinds of control with how it is shared to others. It isn't locked in any specific form. Now, let's go ahead and say it was someone in the org, and I wanted to send it to Cole and Jesse. And I could add other users, but maybe I want to send it so can edit here, and undo with the link. I can type in a whole email. So I can send it to this user, and that email will receive the link, but they're not in my org, and it's going to let me know that. I can remove that now if I would like. I can add a message as it's going to send this out as an email, but I could just copy the link and paste that in a Teams chat or in whatever group message that I'm using, or I can post the link in an email. Alternatively, if I just hit Outlook here, it'll open Outlook, and I'd be able to send it out. Now it's loading awfully slowly, so I'm not going to spend too much time on showing you how to use Outlook. But now, maybe a bit less. That covers some of the basics. Now, if I have multiple items selected here, so I have 2 items selected, I have fewer options. I can download both of them, delete both of them, move both of them, and copy both of them, but I don't have the ability to go to version history for both of them because they have independent version histories from each other. So those features may not be showing when I have 2 items selected. But if I have 1, I get everything back. And let's go to Manage Access now. Under Manage Access, I can just altogether stop sharing it with everyone. And this is telling me what the active link for this document is. So this is a link that's giving people access to the document. If I want, I can remove that link. And so they're not going to have access using that link anymore, or they can't send that link to other users. Of course, I can revoke their access individually, or Go back. I can change their access individually. So this user here, Hayden, he can view it, but he can't make changes. Eric, yeah, Eric can make changes. Or I'm just going to stop sharing it altogether. So this will delete the links giving access to this item and remove all people with direct access except for the owners. So we're going to stop sharing. And now the link will be removed and all these users will no longer have access. And we can see that it has been updated to a private item and not a shared item. Additionally, in OneDrive, over here on the left-hand side rail, I can see a lot of different information. So these are my files, but I can also see what I've recently accessed. What have I been using over the past several months? So I've used documents, automate test in document 1 and document 2. And that's whether it's been shared with me or a document I created. If I've recently accessed it, it will appear here. Under shared, though, this is anything other users have shared with me, and it can be any number of things. So I can see who shared it to me and about how long ago they did it. So about an hour ago, I received this quick meeting with Kessin. What is their attention getter? Quick meeting with all these different users, all these different documents from Grady Archie or Lynn Robbins. And a little bit lower, I can see there's this one here that I've been shared from Cole. And it's saying here that I work with Cole often. So maybe this is something I should focus in on. There was a reason he shared it with me, and I should take a look at it. I can treat many of these similar to documents that I have, but when I'm in this shared view, I can remove it from my shared list. I don't want access to this anymore. If I have permissions to, maybe I can share it with other users. Or I could just remove it from my list if I don't want to use that anymore. So let's say, yeah, I didn't want that. So I'll remove it, and I've removed those 2 items that I had selected. Sorting and views are exactly the same. You don't have the tile view under shared, so keep that in mind. You just have list and compacted list. And my favorite thing is your recycle bin. Items you have deleted. You can empty your recycle bin, of course, but if you do delete items or it reaches beyond your period of time where your org has set retention policies for items in your recycle bin, by default, it's about 30 days. So after that 30-day period, it will get automatically removed. And let's say I was like, oh no, it's 31 days and I really need that document again. Well, if you are an admin or if you reach out to your admin, the admins have permission to a separate item called the second stage recycle bin. And this here is where it holds things that have been deleted for an extra 90 days. And if you need it restored from there, that is always an option. So let's say I go ahead and delete that. That should appear in my second stage once it gets through the refresh.
Hey, Nick, well, that's refreshing. We just had somebody ask, do you mind just hitting F11 to do it full screen so that we're having a
Okay,
few people, sorry, that are
no,
struggling to see?
that's perfectly fine. I totally understand.
Thank you so much, Nick.
All right, so let's go ahead and check that again now. Okay, I am in a demo tenant, so there are some things that have been changed and modified here. But your second stage recycle bin is available to admins to restore things that have been deleted or have passed that 30-day stage period. And down here we have quick access. So these are typically shared libraries to you. And one of the reasons they show up here in OneDrive is it behaves very similar to OneDrive is sharing a whole library to you, despite the Mark 8 project team being a library from SharePoint, which I'm going to go ahead and pause here and ask if we have any questions over OneDrive specifically, or additional features that you are wanting to see.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of things I just wanted to kind of bring up. Some questions that had been brought up throughout the Q&A. So let me go ahead and just kind of bring some stuff up around that. So there were some questions, for instance, regarding things like files on demand, or at least the question was, is there a way to limit the amount of storage that OneDrive takes up in like when you have it synchronizing to your device? And that's actually using files on demand, which is actually a functionality of OneDrive where it only takes up the space of your device of the files that you're actually using. And then it tries to actually pay attention to which ones you're not using and then actually free up that space over time. So I did just want to kind of like go over that. And then as far as file storage limits, and how much of a file size you can upload, there is no upload file size limit. However, there is a limit for each user as far as how much total capacity you have on OneDrive, and that's 1 terabyte. So that's 1,000 gigabytes. So I just wanted to point that out, that you don't have a file upload size limit. So it's not like, for instance, email, where there's an upload limit, or a limit of like only a few megabytes. This is going to be much more, where you can use it much more free form. But as as um, as Nick is now showing on screen on the desktop version of OneDrive, and I know that it's his desktop, so it might not be as easy to see, but there's these small icons that indicate where, like, what the current status of each of those particular files is. I will go ahead, or I actually have already posted some information on files on demand inside of the Q&A on the question that somebody had posted. So if you want to learn more about it, we will go ahead and have you take a look at it there. I will go ahead and actually ask Nick if you could, before jumping into the next area of our section, if you go back to the web view one more time. There was one area that I think people could really take advantage of, and that is the ability to request files. So if you go and create a brand new folder, then you can use that new folder to request files from individuals. So you could type in a certain name for like whatever kinds of file it is, and then you select it and right click it, and then you can select request files. And if you'll show exactly how that works, yes, exactly. So then what you can then do is request a certain kind of file, describe what that file is supposed to be. Maybe, I mean, for those folks who are probably familiar with older films, you could request some TPS reports from everybody and see if they could get those done, and then you can then send in. Yeah, see exactly as Nick is saying, if you can get those TPS reports done, that'd be great, Yep. So then you hit next, and then you type in the emails or the group email. If it's a 365 group with enough people, like with the people who you need, you can add that, and then it'll send the email to all of those people to submit that file. And when they submit the file that you're asking for, all those files will show up inside of that folder. So I did want to just kind of point that out, right before we switched up to the next section of the training.
Thank you very much for that, Neil. Would have missed that one. So, one thing that I did want to show off here, right here it says status. When you're discussing how much storage it is taking up on your local device, you can actually tell by going through here and seeing what symbol is set for the status on your local device, because that's what your File Explorer is. It's helping you monitor what is currently in your storage. If it has the cloud here, that means it is currently housed in the cloud. If it has the green checkbox, it means, yes, it is housed in the cloud, but it's also saved locally on your device, that you are holding on to a local copy. If I wanted to go in and modify something here, like the employee engagement plan, it would download just long enough for me to make my edits, and then as I close out and save it, or it auto saves, so I'll just close out and it'll send it back to the cloud and remove it from my device. If I just want to keep it in OneDrive. So you can start figuring out how much storage is being taken up by using these symbols in your File Explorer. You can also see which one of them are shared with other users by this half circle with the smaller circle above it. That is meant to look like a head on shoulders, kind of like a person, kind of like me in this live event. So just keep track of what those symbols are, and that'll help you understand how your storage is being used on your device. And we have one new symbol up here at the top, and that is this looks like a chain link. So we'll close out here, and we'll see that we have that same symbol here. And that is going to be my transition to SharePoint, because we are connecting a SharePoint storage location to OneDrive. So I'm going to remove myself from full screen here so I can go back to my apps page. And now I'm going to go down to the S section to go to SharePoint. And in SharePoint, there's a great many things we can do. It is a great resource for you if you are trying to create a site to collaborate with your teams. And if you have made a team in Microsoft Teams, that is already a SharePoint site. All your files, most of your data in a team is just housed in SharePoint and mirrored and displayed in a special format for Microsoft Teams. So I can create a team site if I have a group of users I'm wanting to collaborate with, and I can create a site name. So UT SharePoint, and it has a group email address and a site address, and here, so it's the group email address at on Microsoft.com, Contoso, whatever the domain name is. And so here it's saying site address is going to be am365 such and such.sharepoint.com sites UT. I can give a description for what the purpose of the site is going to be. I can control what the privacy settings here are. So public, anyone in the org; private, only those I invite. And then I can choose a language. And then once I have created the team site, I need to add additional owners. I usually say at least add one. So, and then add as many members as you need. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there, and it will populate a team site. And so here I can do all kinds of things from collaborating, creating web pages to have a weekly news feed. I can see what activity has been happening in my team, whether it's from document modification. Every single time someone modifies a document in SharePoint, it's going to show up in my activity. Every time they add a document or create a new one or modify a web page that we use for our navigation here. But the advantage of using SharePoint is just like how OneDrive is that individual filing cabinet. So I can see here, there's documents, and I'm actually going to go to my SharePoint home and use a team, Market Project Team. It's my personal favorite. Nope, that was the wrong one. Market Project Team, which is already full of content, and it's going to be easier for me to show off. So it's been set up a little bit differently. They've set up a countdown to their product launch. They have some images already on display being showcased. I can see a PowerPoint in preview, and I can just tab through it. It's built to promote the collaboration for this team. But this document library is being showcased here, and all I have to do is go to my documents. And now, I can see all, well, there it is, loading in. it is very much the same view that we had before in OneDrive. It's just a group file storage. It's the group filing cabinet. We're all interacting with the same files. There's not multiple copies floating around, but everyone in the team has access to it. I don't have to request it from John Smith over there, who's maybe just bad at reading his email, so I might not get it for 2 days. I can see all the folders, all the files, and we can even add columns for different notes and information we want to provide on it. So we can categorize it by department. And if I go into Edit in Grid View, so we have our typical new upload, but Grid View is new. And this allows me to modify information about these files. So I can change the name in Grid View. I can't change when it was modified or who it was modified by. That's auto-populated. But I can change departments. So there's IT, sales, and HR. Those are our 3 departments. And you know what? I think the important Word document here, that's definitely an HR document. And this one, important PowerPoint, that's still part of HR. But the Mark 8 elevator pitch, that's for sales. That's an elevator pitch. And there's the sales campaign data, also sales. And so I can really manipulate and tell people, hey, this is really categorized for this group, or it's for that group. And I don't have to create folders upon subfolders to make those categories clear. I can even add new columns, and there's all kinds of options you have here. Maybe you're asking a yes or no question as the column title. And this one, the name is Ready for Distribution. And it's a yes/no type. And at default, I'm going to say no, because they have to switch it to yes. And I'm going to save it. And so now I can go in here and say campaign sales data. You know what? Yeah, that's ready for distribution. Or document 1, no, not really. We're just going to leave it there as is. And we'll select into a new cell. And so I can add these columns, whether it's multiple lines of text for notes I'm taking, a location, because maybe it's location specific for instance, UT, you have maybe different campus buildings or different campuses entirely that you're wanting to set these up for. And it's set up for the whole org, but each location might be using different folders or using the folders and files differently. A date and time, maybe there's a due date you're trying to set for some content. A hyperlink, because it's a relevant link web page to the document you're interacting with, but we just want to make sure you have a hold of that instead of putting it in some other place that we have to track down. And there are so many column types. I could do a whole class on just interacting with columns and lists within SharePoint. But I just want to give you an image of what that really offers you. So we can go ahead and exit grid view here. You have the same sync option as before, and that'll tie it into your file explorer. If you use the SharePoint location that frequently, by all means, sync it up, have it ready to go in your file explorer. We can even go into another folder and sync that folder, just the folder, into our file explorer. Add a shortcut to OneDrive. This is that feature that I showed off earlier, that little chain link. We can see it has that same little dash between 2 parentheses there, chain link style, and I've just added a shortcut, and it seems that it already exists, so I'm not going to create a new one. But it is just as simple as hitting that button. And like we were seeing in grid view, it is a grid, it's a list, and I can export that list to Excel because maybe there's a lot of important data that I'm tracking in my document library, and yeah, I'm going to export it to Excel. Power Apps or Power Automate are both very powerful, very useful apps that you can manipulate a lot, especially out of SharePoint in. But again, they are separate classes that really deserve their own hour. Alert Me. So alert me when items change in SharePoint. There's a lot you can do with that. You can control whether it emails you or sends you text message. All kinds of different ways you can customize your alerts here. If there is files that you're afraid to see modified, or you have to be the one to manage them, that's on you. And so you want to know when they're modified, you can set up those alerts. And then you can manage those alerts after you create them. And that is part of messing with the document in cloud storage in SharePoint. But, oh, no, that was too far out. So in the Mark8 project team, there is another thing that I want to show here, and that is by hitting New up at the top, I can create a new document library. So maybe I have document libraries for every major work group. That way, we're not all going to be cluttered in the same location. And so again, it's another very useful tool to avoid creating all this different folder clutter. So instead of creating folders upon folders upon folders, I can create multiple document libraries to avoid that complication and simplify the process for each major group. Some of the other great uses of SharePoint is just like before, we have that recycle bin, and it has that second stage recycle bin as well, just like OneDrive. And that is everything from my document libraries are going to show up here. Even if I have multiple document libraries, it will show up here. And so I can edit the navigation here. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to do that now. Let's go back to the Mark8 project team. And I can view details for a page. I can modify the page. I can see what members are in the group. And so I can see who has access to all those files. Maybe I want to add a member. And it's going to be, I actually don't know the name of anyone outside of this group, but I could type in an email and add them as a member. Do we have any questions over that so far?
I have not seen any questions so far regarding that particular material. Let me just go ahead and review, just make sure that there isn't anything new that hasn't shown up. No, there's not any new questions regarding that material. You can continue.
Okay. And some of the last things that I want to show here is SharePoint is meant to be a collaborative space. And so beyond just sharing those document libraries, and it's some nice web pages where you can highlight that content. But up at the top here, I can search this site using a global search that I have available on SharePoint. So if I'm in a site, I can search it specifically for anything I'm looking for. So maybe I was looking for a user, looking for Eric, so show more results. And I can see here that none of these say Eric, but maybe it's something he's recently modified. And so the filter is last modified. So yeah, Eric was the last one to modify those. Back up here. I can look it up by file. I can even look up by page. So I can search more. And I am sorting it by last modified as it's loading in, but I can look for all things that have document in it. So whether it's a file, a page or site, or a news in my SharePoint organization. So let me go back. We're going to return to our home page. And I have a bunch of pages on the side of my screen here. So I've already been through documents, but I can take a look at areas of focus to see what they're trying to highlight to me. I can go into my design guidelines. It seems they're all leading to the same page, and those aren't pages that we have available to us. But what I really want to get into is the team calendar. That opens us into Outlook, and in Outlook, I'm seeing the group calendar. I can even get into the group email. So there's a group email address that was created earlier, and I can see what that inbox is receiving. So again, we're going to hit F11, tab back over. Oh, nope, I'm actually just going to hit back a couple times. And beyond just having a group calendar or group inbox, we also have a planner board set up and a OneNote for us to collaborate on note taking or task assignment. And that way, everything that we're doing across the Microsoft environment is being held up to date, and I can see what the completion on these tasks or on our overall plan is. Those are separate classes for each of these apps individually. So again, I'm not going to dive too far into them, but turning back to Contoso there. Do we have any questions on that?
No other questions that have shown up at this time.
In that case, Neil, are there any features you think I missed or are worth highlighting?
I did want to also point out a couple of different things when it comes to cloud storage between OneDrive and SharePoint. One of them is that using in the document library of SharePoint, you actually have the ability to create shortcuts to specific folders that you have access to within your OneDrive. So you can select Add Shortcut to OneDrive, and so it'll look like a folder inside of your OneDrive if you do that. I just want to point out that I think you did go over this, but I just did want to point out just how useful that is. Being able to have specific folders that might have specific useful information in them that you maybe access on a regular basis, you can have that integrated into your OneDrive. And then you can also take it a step further and also take the SharePoint site and synchronize it with your device the same way as well. So you can like just as you see that we have synchronized our OneDrive, you can also synchronize a SharePoint site the same way. It'll show up as its own entry as part of the organization which you have, which that particular site is part of, and it will have its own entry inside of that area. So I did want to just kind of point those things out. And then from there, I think we can now close on out. I think Amanda wants to go ahead and close us out. So I'll go ahead and give it to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending. Nick, that was awesome. I loved especially the team calendar and being able to see all of that content at a glance. I think that's incredibly helpful for our group. So thank you so much for sharing all of this incredible information with UT Dallas today. I know there has been some great takeaways for me that I didn't even know, and I'm sure that everyone else has some things that they were able to learn through your teaching. So thank you so much, sir. With that,
Absolutely.
sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm glad I could provide that content to you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's great. Appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and share our closing slide. We like to always take the opportunity just to ask for your feedback after attending these sessions. I'm going to post this link in the chat in just a second. If you have a smartphone on you, you're welcome just to pull it up and scan that QR code. It's going to take you directly to our survey link. So with that, we'll leave that up for a few minutes. We're going to keep our eye on the chat. If there was something that maybe that just came to your mind that you wanted to ask us, let's go ahead and get those questions in now before we close out. Thank you again all for attending.